People who are related to celebrities. How has their fame affected family gatherings and events? Related to Keanu Reeves. We have a Reeves Ohana gathering every year in Hawaii and he never comes. Which I don't blame him at all. His dad was not a good father, so I assume, besides being a busy actor, he doesn't come because that burned the bridges with our family. My dad sometimes mentions Keanu when the reunions happen, about how he doesn't visit. It's not in a bitter way or anything, just sometimes the little cousins ask. I haven't met all my family in Hawaii yet cause I live in the mainland, but I do know at least a few people are salty about it. Other than that, my cousins look up to him and get excited when he's in a movie. Even if the kids aren't allowed to watch cause of violence, they see a movie poster and look all awestruck. So cute. I've met one of your cousins. He told me that Keanu showed up once years ago. My uncle is Dr. Demento. He's a really cool guy, insanely knowledgeable about music and music history. He is totally cool at family gatherings. Megan Fox is my first cousin once removed. Her mother and my grandfather are brother and sister. She's 6 years older than me, so there are plenty of pictures of us playing together while growing up. But once she got to the point of puberty, she quickly shifted into modeling and moved from Tennessee to Florida to pursue it. But she then got into movies and, as you know, made it rather big. The last time she was in town to visit was about 12 years ago. She came for Christmas and everything seemed normal until she whipped out the stack of headshots she had brought to sign for us to take back to our friends and such. She did make it a point to call my grandfather when he had his heart attack back in 2014. So not all is lost in fame. The headshots thing was just a tad comical. My aunt is Xena the warrior princess and absolutely nothing at family gatherings. She is just our aunt. We got stopped a couple times in New Orleans by people who recognized her. Back in NZ when her show was going on, some little girls would come up and want to take pics. She's the one of the nicest people to talk to and never acts like a celebrity. I have gotten to do some very cool stuff in my life which you'll never take for granted because of her kindness. Hey Lucy, I'll let you guess which one of us it is if you're out there. Your aunt is awesome. I used to watch Xena and Hercules all the time growing up. I wish there were more shows based off mythology stories. She was cutthroat in Spartacus. It makes me happy to read she's just someone's cool aunt. Hey, something I can meaningfully contribute to. My uncle is Sinbad the comedian actor. He is married to my biological aunt on my dad's side, so I am not his blood relation, but his kids and wife are blood related to me. It actually hasn't. We go on vacations with them every summer, and have for the past 6 or so years. We didn't for a while when him and my aunt were separated, but after they got back together we see that family at least once a year. Just got back from a vacation with them on Sunday actually. We went on a Royal Caribbean cruise. At first it was a little annoying having to stop every couple minutes because someone asked for a picture, but eventually he stopped posing for pictures while with us. He just says sorry, I'm with my family now. Nothing terribly exciting, but he has been famous since I was born, so I didn't get a before and after experience. The coolest thing was definitely going to Disney Universal with him. We got the VIP treatment and skipped every line. We rode dueling dragons probably 5-7 times back to back. 3 of us barfed. It was great. Not really a celebrity, but my uncle is one of the first dozen people Bill Gates hired to start Microsoft. He's stupid rich now but spends his time being super generous with his money to family and advocating for the protection of national parks and a healthy environment. Probably the nicest and most down-to-earth people I've ever met. He never buys anything unnecessary if he can help it. He does all he can to make his house 100% environmentally friendly. He's pretty awesome. You'd never know that he helped change the world. Sounds like a cool dude. My cousins are in the band Cage the Elephant. My cousins are so down to earth that their fame doesn't really affect our family. We are all so close even though we live so far away, and they invite us to their concerts when they're in town. I will say when we plan family reunions, everyone's first question is will the boys be on tour then? Of course this is because everyone wants all the family there and my cousins are usually the most busy out of everyone with schedules that are pretty finite. Overall, it has brought us all closer having such successful people who worked hard in our family. That's so cool. Cage the Elephant is one of my faves. Awesome to hear they're nice guys. My wife is childhood friends with family of Viggo Mortensen. She got to hang out with him after he shot Lord of the Rings but before it was released. Said he was a very cool guy, extremely laid back, and fun to have a beer with. Her friend spent her childhood hanging out with him on summer vacations and has yet to have a bad thing to say about him. I refuse to believe that Aragorn could be anything less than just a great guy. My grandfather was Charles Schulz, the creator of Peanuts, Charlie Brown. I don't really know how it affected my family gatherings because my family hasn't been together for a long time for other reasons. But I do know that for a few members of the family the comics are really important to them and they really pride themselves in their involvement with them. My girlfriend's cousin is on Orange is the New Black. Got to watch her place in New York once. She can't get me Kate Mulgrew's autograph so she's dead to me. If it's Maritza then you should introduce me to your girlfriend's family. My professor last semester turned out to be Matt Damon's stepdad. School gossip says he cancelled class for J.Lo and Ben Affleck's wedding, and then abruptly uncancelled it when the wedding didn't work out. My uncle is a retired Hall of Fame P actor. He'd come to Ohio for Christmas every year and my mom would give him and his sexy P-star girlfriends my room since it was the biggest. One Christmas morning my mom had me go in to wake him up and lo and behold his girlfriend was completely naked on my bed. I stared for a minute then woke them up. I was 12. My voice changed 3 octaves that year. Commas smas. Ftfi. Kind of unheard of but Alex Pietrangelo, professional hockey player, is my stepbrother. Usually see him during the summer, and we go out on his boat. Swell dude. As a Blues fan, hate me a relative. Spouse is related to David Tennant. I did not know this until after we were married. Spouse born in America. Not impacted life at all except I got to meet him during my first trip to London. Their family scored us tickets to Much Ado About Nothing and we saw David Tennant and Catherine Tate after the show. Nothing bad to say about either of them. They were both lovely and effusive and Tennant gave us both a hug even though neither of us had ever met him before. Spouse had a brief chat about mutual acquaintances in the family and then we left. I used to work in a gym in London. David Tennant occasionally dropped by for a session and would always have a quick chat, asking how my day's been etc. Seemed a really genuinely nice guy. My dad is first cousins with Tommy Mottola, formerly Mr. Mariah Carey. Tommy used to provide free tickets to concerts for the various stars he represented. Carly Simon, Hall & Oates, but as more and more people had their hands out, the more he retreated. I worked at Sony for a while he was there. He got in the elevator one day in his $2,000 shiny mobster suit, waited until the elevator stopped on his floor, and ripped a giant fart. Waved at us as he ran out. Never too rich or famous to trap a bunch of guys in an elevator a fart. Really funny. My ex-wife is related to Richard Ramirez. Yes, the Night Stalker. He'd come up at every single family gathering big or small. They would talk about him for hours. Same stories, same reactions. As the years went by he slowly started to disappear from the conversations. Then he goes and makes national news when he died. We were already divorced when it happened but that did not stop her family from reaching out to me and telling me, in detail, all about his life and death. It still comes up every time I come across any of them. Can't tell if it's pride or sorrow. My uncle is Peter Weller, aka Robocop. Every time we go out to dinner he tells these really cool stories about all the other famous people he has met and how he's friends with Arnold Schwarzenegger and it's really cool to listen to his stories for hours on end. My sister's best friend is Ryan Reynolds' niece. She went to the wedding with Blake Lively. Ryan came to our school one time. A+ guy and he is still close to his family. Frick, I am as much in love with Ryan Reynolds as a straight man can be. It would be crazy to know someone that is related to him. Best friend for life. My ex was related to Seamus Heaney, an Irish poet that was very famous in Ireland, from what I understand. We stayed at his house a few years ago and I had never heard of him. He was just lovely, like a grandpa you would love to have. Very humble and normal house. Ex's mum kept bigging him up but Seamus and his wife were just normal people. The weird thing was walking into bookstores and seeing his face everywhere, then going back home to have lunch with him or chat to him about life. I say this without any condescension whatsoever, but this guy's poetry is taught in English class all over Europe, not just the UK and Ireland. He's probably the most famous contemporary English language poet, at least over here in Europe. I guess from what you said you probably read some of his poetry, but if you haven't I recommend it. My uncle is Steve Smith aka Red Green, the Canadian handyman comedy show from the 90s. We used to all gather in the 90s and zeros when our generation had wedding season. He was always the life of the party without ever trying. If there was a lull in conversation he'd pipe in with something hysterical and have the whole table laughing. Never tried. He was just a natural and would never interrupt anyone else. He's a very kind and wonderful guy. We'd go to tapings of the show and would howl, not only at the show but at the countrified studio audience. It was all in good fun. I think the only effect it had at gatherings were on our very excited so's meeting him for the first time. We only gather once in a while now as he's winding down a bit. He's in his 70s now and enjoying semi-retirement. Still doing shows. The fam tells me we bear a strong resemblance, which is nice. People in here may post relationships to Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, Shaq, whatever, but your relationship is the one I'm the most jealous of. My neighbor when I was 12 was the guitarist for Matchbox 20 around when they were all over the radio. My dad plays a lot of guitar, so he would go over and they would play for a few hours and chill. Got to meet the rest of the band and they were all really cool, down to earth guys. My uncle played for the Toronto Maple Leafs as a goalie in the 80s and 90s, then other NHL teams a bit later. He stayed pretty down to earth about it. Realistically, he was never incredibly famous. He was just part of our family. He moved to Orlando a while ago and had a falling out with some people. I haven't seen him or his daughters in probably a decade or more. Now, he only comes up because fathers of people I know recognize my unique last name and don't know why. A few times people asked right away if me and my uncle are related, but it seems those times have passed. If it's Felix Potvin I am crazy jealous. LOL. My first cousin on my father's side is James Roday. He has always been the type of guy. Even as a kid, we all knew he was going to be famous. He's just always had that it factor. So when he became famous, those of us in the immediate family just saw it as an end to the means. The only uncomfortable thing to happen at a family function was at my grandmother's funeral. It was obviously a very emotional time, but my brother's wife at the time didn't see it as such and was taking any opportunity to snap as many selfies and candid look at me with Sean from Psych photos as possible. He was very tactful about it though and graciously granted her as much as he could handle until my brother made her chill the frick out. Jamie is a good dude, man. Definitely one of the people in my life that I am most proud of, because he earned every bit of fame and fortune he has received, all the while staying an incredibly humble guy. Some family reunions I've been to have been in Preston, Idaho, where Napoleon Dynamite was filmed. They're not celebrities, but I guess we have a couple of family members who were in the movie, and the chicken farm Napoleon works at is owned by a family member as well. Naturally, the movie is frequent topic of conversation at the reunions. Late to this, but my friend's uncle is Will Smith. Apparently he doesn't really speak to much of his family anymore because they're always asking for money and whatnot. Matt McConaughey is my second cousin. He acts normal with us, but the bastard has yet to deliver me a book for the bully I beat up for him 38 years ago, though he does always bring the best booze to the parties. Alright. My stepdad is Professor Brian Cox. Some of his old school friends treat him differently, but that's probably normal for fame. My aunt on my mum's side posts on Facebook about how he's her brother-in-law pretty often to get attention. She's gone pretty nuts and that's the least she's done for attention and sympathy. And my dad directed Brass Eye Snuff Box and Toast of London. So that's why my throwaway is named this, because that's a fricked upbringing. My husband is Jason Rubin, creator of the video game Crash Bandicoot and the company Naughty Dog. I'm very proud of him. He is a very kind person and also the smartest human I've ever met. Also very funny. Sometimes people recognize him and that makes me very proud. I'm relatively closely related to J.K. Rowling, and to be honest it doesn't affect family gatherings at all. Either people whisper about her from afar, or go up and have a conversation with her. Most people don't make a big deal of it and she does the same and just chats to anyone that speaks to her. The biggest reaction I ever get is when someone finds out I'm related to her. Haha. Related to Kings of Leon through marriage. Pretty cool group of guys. We have a family reunion every May and hang out and play horseshoes etc. Just like everyone else. It's kind of funny because even here in my tiny little town they still act like they're going to be bombarded by fans, but literally no one recognizes them. One of my best friends is the daughter of a pretty successful actor in Hollywood. Her parents got divorced when she was 5 or 6. We're 21 now, and when he remarried another actress a few years later he pretty much cut her and her brother out of his life. He came to our high school graduation, but other than that she only really hears from him over email once or twice a year. Little late but my cousin is Rowan Atkinson. My great-great-grandfather is Andrew Carnegie. I'm named after his daughter. My mother spent her summers as a child at his castle, Skibo, in Scotland. I've visited a couple times as well, but the castle isn't in our family anymore. My great-grandmother ended up selling it partly because her son, my grandfather, passed away very young. As most people know, Andrew was a philanthropist. He gave away most of his money and built a bunch of libraries around the world and started many foundations. Education was very important to him. That being said, my family has never been crazy rich, but comfortable. I grew up in the suburbs in a small town in a modest house, starting working in high school and am now a nurse. Andrew did leave all of his descendants, mine being the last generation to receive it, a trust fund specifically for educational purposes. My siblings and I have used that for some of our tuition fees, but now I am paying for my own school. I feel honored to be a Carnegie and am pursuing a career in nursing and public health in hopes of starting my own non-profit one day. Apparently Janet Horn, the last witch to be executed in Britain, is my 4th great-grandmother. Only recently just found out after her name was scored out of the old family Bible tree. My 105-year-old great-grandmother was not allowed to talk about her when she was younger. My wife is a distant relative of Tom Hanks. It doesn't affect her at all. It affects me because she reminds me of it every time he is mentioned on the TV. Every time we tag a photo of him on Instagram, we get weird butt messages from fans, random follows, comments. Please tell me you're related to Luis Guzman. Not me, but one of my friends is an Indian woman who moved here with her family when she was a little kid. When she graduated college, her parents started asking her when she was going to get married, and introducing her to the sons of their friends hoping they'd hit it off. Eventually it worked. They introduced her to a really nice guy who was also born in India but lived in the same state as us most of the year. She didn't find out until a month or 2 into the relationship that he's a famous Bollywood star. He's just completely unknown in the US. They're married now, and it seems like such a strange dichotomy. When they're in the US they live the same as any other wealthy American couple, but Indian tabloids covered their wedding and interviewed her to see what kind of woman would attract such a star. When they walk into a restaurant in his hometown in India, the owner will sometimes shut it down so they can eat alone, and will give them the meal for free, because it's worth it just for the publicity that they ate there. My friend is pretty quiet and a bit shy, so I think she's really glad they live in the US most of the time, but it's definitely an interesting life. Not to mention her parents are very happy. My 3rd cousin on my mom's side is Rob Borden, drummer of Linkin Park. I met him once in 2001 at a family party, literally right before In the End got big. I was like 5, but he was so nice to me, especially since it was shortly after our grandfather's death and I was taking it pretty hard. Unfortunately, a lot of the more Catholic folks of my family got pretty pissy at him because he announced an interest in Judaism, and I haven't spoken to him since. I would love to talk to him, but I don't wanna look like those family members who would probably want a handout. IDKY, my brain said Limp Bizkit when my eyes saw Linkin Park. Garrison Keeler, who hosts a Prairie Home Companion, is a relative of some kind. I've met him when I was really little. but I do remember he was awesome at reading children's books because of his voice. Apparently some members of the family don't like him because he doesn't hand out freebies, tickets, backstage invitations, etc., and is generally protective of his work. I have no idea as I haven't seen him for over 20 years. Was on a date with a girl. Helter Skelter was playing on the radio. I brought up the song's involvement with the Manson murders. She burst out crying. Apparently she was a close relative of Sharon Tate. Whoops. I had an aunt that had a bit role in a commercial. It was for Life Touch. She was the old lady lying on the ground who said, "I've fallen and I can't get up." She was a scream and must have done that line 1,000 times during our family dinners. Even though everybody in North America has seen that commercial dozens of times, she only got recognized a couple of times. She was once recognized in a mall and laid down on the floor and said the line. People were cheering and clapping. Dang dude, your aunt was memes before memes were memes. Tell her thank you. My coworker is a distant cousin of Vanilla Ice. She hasn't seen him in years. The last time she saw him was at a wedding when they were both older kids. She remembers him acting like a jerk and pushing somebody into a pool. That wasn't nice. Nice, baby. I'm a descendant of John Milton, the poet. Paradise Lost. You know that music video with the guy on the boat with all the bikini babes? Well, my life is like that, except the boat is our basement and the babes are my mom. My cousin was Miss Universe. She got a lot of attention at family gatherings, which are like every weekend in Puerto Rico, but that was about it. I live in the US, but my aunt Konkona Sen Sharma is a very famous Indian actress, upcoming director, and my grandmother is a world recognized director, but much better known in India. I don't go to India all that often, so I'm not very affected by my relation to them. But once when I was in India, we were at a coffee place and these two girls came up to my aunt wanting an autograph. I felt really awkward and confused cause this hasn't ever happened to me before. I was also so confused because I've never gotten the sense that they were celebrities because they acted like regular people. I always feel like celebrities just act in a different manner than other people. I realized why I thought that after seeing interviews of my aunt and grandmother that my mom watched sometimes. They acted differently, in the way you expect celebrities to act during interviews or talk shows, than how they had ever talked to me. My dad's cousin is an actor with a couple hundred inventories who is currently playing a role in one of my favorite TV shows. Don't want to say his name because it's the same last name as me. I've met him 3 times. He lives in LA and every time he comes back to town, one of my uncles will throw a dinner party for him and the entire extended family will show up. It's really the only thing that can make that happen. Really nice guy though. Great storyteller. I'm going to guess Steven Tobolowsky. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.